Hello, and welcome to another wonderful episode of Submitted for Your Approval, the weekly card review show for Collective, the community-created card game. I'm Stranger Side. I realize I don't say my name a lot on the show, just so you know who I am. I'm joined today, as always, by my faithful co-host, Grief.
Howdy, folks.
My regular panelist, Empty Folder.
Hello, everyone.
And today we are joined by a special guest, somebody who's not been on the show before. We have Magneter, who is the Realm admin de facto of Xandar. So want to say hi, Magneter?
Hello there.
And the guy who brought Flying into Spirit, my arch nemesis. No.
You did well.
So anyways, I wanted to get started right away with the accepted submissions, starting with one that kind of slipped through the cracks last week. I thought someone would have picked it, but it just didn't end up happening. Kadar.
I picked it on purpose.
Oh, I see.
Well,
yeah, I
didn't. You were
didn't.
first.
I wasn't gonna pick it because he put my name in the Reddit post, and then everyone else I think had the same idea at once, and so none of us ended up picking it. So if you want to get picked on the show, don't try to get picked on the show. Kadar the World is a 13-drop neutral 10/16 Titan from Talira with untargetable overrun and ready this before combat. When this deals damage, banish your other copies of this in all zones, scour 5, and play the top card of your deck. It has the active of shuffle 10 copies of a card in your hand into your deck. So this is really, really great and interesting for maybe some sort of spam combo archetype, but it takes so long to get off. You already got to get at 13 before this thing, unless of course you're probably running this, I'd imagine, with That's Fanatic. Or some other sort of shenanigans. It seems like it would work fairly well on Cliffside. Of course, it is just a really cool, nice, big, beefy, hard to target boy. But beyond that, I'm a little confused how exactly this is going to see use in the competitive environment going forward. So, Grief, what do you think of this?
This falls basically in the same camp as Osh, not being basically the similar effect as Osh, but more an Osh adjacent. Let's have a build around late game unit that allows us to combo off, maybe not, depending on how well we can ramp into it. And unlike Osh, we have way less building requirements for that deck to actually function, because Kadar is technically a win more.
Yeah.
Since if your deck is already good enough, you can play without him. But the moment you drop him, he is an untargetable overrun dude with 10 damage. B, enables basically any kind of madness that your deck can be capable of at that point. Mm-hmm. So it remains to be seen and what kind of control deck to play. Yeah, sure, Cliffside, That's Fanatic is one option. It remains to be seen post-rotation and in Legacy, because in Legacy that card wasn't play-tested yet.
Yeah, this does bring up the other interesting idea that if we get too much more non-native support, perhaps this could be a linchpin in a non-native deck, despite not being like a Black Rift card or whatever, because it does give you a lot of copies of cards that are now non-native. Empty, what do you think of this?
I mean, this is like the big ramp sort of payoff card in Standard right now. Like, you're not really going to be casting this ever for 13 mana just by getting there normally.
Yeah.
Like Reef said, you have That's Fanatic, and this is a shoe into that deck. There's no reason not to run this. But if we see some weird perma lists, maybe with Money Machine and stuff, to get this out early. Scouring 5 and then playing whatever you put on top is really strong. So a lot of the time, this is just going to win the game on some down.
Yeah, I do also hope, as far as the creative direction goes on this, I know that JTAD and I share something in common, which is a fondness for tarot cards. And this seems to be a reference to the tarot card of the world, because he also has this tarot deck that he talks about it on Discord every now and again. And I'd be interested to see if maybe he went that direction creatively for stuff in Talira. I just love the whole package. It really does feel like this just late game powerhouse, but yeah, it does remain to be seen. You need some sort of ramp or some sort of engine in order to get it out, because just stalling to 13 ain't gonna cut it. Magneter, what do you think?
I mean, personally, first off, I feel like the combination of untargetable and overrun is really, really dangerous because you can't. Because if you want to actually block it efficiently, you would need a unit with at least 10 HP. I mean, I suppose not. You wouldn't need 10 HP exactly, because it's not like one damage is that important, but still, I feel like this can be dangerous.
Well,
because
and
you can't
yeah,
use removal on it, but you still can use mass buffs on it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing to remember is that being untargetable, it is not susceptible to like equipment buffs and stuff. So it is kind of a good balancing factor. That Arantar is more of a shroud type thing, to do the magic analogy, in that it affects both sides. So you gotta, it's not necessarily just a universal plus, right? It's also a little bit of a drawback.
Well, also, you really don't want to multi-block this because that ability is going to trigger multiple times.
Yeah. So you got to kind of all-in block it, which is kind of what a big guy should be, I think. This should be a nice big endgame thing. I do think it's weird how its main abilities seem to be to like draw the game out longer, but it's probably going to close the game out pretty quick just by merit of its stat line. But you might have one cool combo to get off or whatever.
I think I also thought about when seeing this is a pretty weird idea of trying to shuffle copies of Permalo's doubloons into the deck to maybe possibly win the game through the level 5 win condition. It's pretty unlikely. It's probably not the best thing you can do with this, but
yeah, I wouldn't say
so. It's something which you could possibly try doing at some point, maybe, because right now on its own it definitely wouldn't work, but maybe in the future with other cards.
If anything, I know people have pushed to make. I think Vox's Polyphony makes your Titans cost one less. Yeah, it's not Vox specifically, right?
No, I don't think we ever got that updated.
Oh man, because I was thinking that would be a great thing. Any sort of harmonized unit or something like that, just something you need a lot of copies of the same thing to do the stackable buff that you probably have out already or running in the deck would be a good candidate. But
weekly reminder.
What?
Vox was a weekly reminder. Vox design as an archetype was a bad design space.
Okay. Yeah, let's move on from this. This is a cool design, and congrats for JTAG getting a legendary in. Arc Bolt is a 3-drop mind action from nowhere in particular with fast and deal 2 damage to an enemy unit and 1 damage to adjacent units. And this is from Shaking It Up, who I don't believe has gotten a card in before. Either way, congratulations. So this art is really, really interesting and really, really cute. I thought there were meeples for a second. This is a cool effect in a design space that isn't really explored all that much. Honestly, it's kind of suffers a little bit from being like this splash damage thing. It's good on aggro. I almost wish it didn't say enemy unit. I almost wish you could target your own stuff and use this to proc a bunch of rage effects in a rage deck, but there's not a lot of rage in mind currently. So, although there used to be some. Empty, what do you think of this?
The rage thing seems like a meme, but the card itself is like it's pretty good.
The card itself just seems kind of meh, so I kind of wish it had more utility.
I mean, it's a good anti-aggro tool. You can use like the hits on the side to pop wards and stuff.
Yeah.
If you're running against that. Yeah, it's just a perfectly fine card.
You could also use it to sneak in damage against untar units, I guess.
Yeah, that's true, but like it's only 1 damage. And let's be real. How many untargetable units are floating around?
Yeah.
Not very many.
We need something that gives your actions deadly. That would be fun.
So like it does have fast, so you can do the thing of like popping the ward and then immediately killing the units so they can't refresh it.
Yeah, so this is cool and this is versatile. Except it seems like it suffers from kind of a bad matchup problem where against certain matchups, this isn't really going to be the kind of thing you need. That's my personal opinion on it. Magneter, what do you think of this?
Well, I feel like it is a pretty weak card overall. It won't, because again, yeah, like you said, it's gonna be good against aggro, but in the current post-rotation meta, it doesn't really seem like there are too many aggro decks. Maybe Oozes, but Oozes wouldn't be hurt too much by that either because of their
Rage and
end
Entomb
tombs.
effect.
So
Yeah.
it could possibly even benefit them with a worst case scenario. I feel like this. I mean, it's an interesting effect. I just feel like the 1 damage to adjacent units is just too low.
I think it's about appropriately costed for its effect, in that I think any more modifications would make it too powerful. I just don't think the effect itself is as versatile as enough to merit running it in like a lot of decks, unless you're like matchup aware, like you're running this in, say, a tournament or whatever. Because I think anything else in this would be like an auto include and probably be a little too powerful. But like if you bump the adjacent damage to 2 or whatever. But I'm probably wrong on that. I'm not really that great as far as the numbers go. Grief, what do you think?
Well, I think it's pretty much appropriately costed as well, considering that it is a mini version of Falling Star and a more controlled copy of stuff like Acid Rain, which was a 2-cost. Every unit gains is dealt 1 damage, and Falling Star dealt 3 damage directly to a target and 1 damage to the rest of the units on that on your opponent's side of the board. So yeah, it is basically the best slash okayish part of both worlds. And with the fast, you can actually have probably uncounterable interactions depending on the cost of the follow-up play. So it remains to be seen how well this card will adjust into the meta moving onwards. But as for now, this is probably a pretty neat tool you can have as a 1 to 2 off in your deck, depending on how your removal suit looks like.
Yeah. The Saxomatic is a 2-drop mine 2/2 robot bard from Concierto with leap and summon until end of turn. When you play a card, pay 1 mana. If you do, draw a card. This is very, very interesting. It's one of those 2 drops that doesn't want to be played on turn 2. And has the potential, if you're comboing off, if you have enough mana and a bunch of cheap cards, to net you a lot of cards. Stuff that comes to mind, maybe running this with like Ring the Bell and just getting a couple cheap draws out. This is a pretty neat little draw engine, and it's a nice little leap blocker. So I like the versatility on this one. Whose pick was this? Was this your pick?
It was mine.
Yeah, Empty, you want to talk about why you picked this?
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting design. And I really like the sort of build around aspect of like playing a whole bunch of cards. Sort of like Storm, except you also need a lot of mana to go along with it in order to like get the full value out of this. So any deck that like runs Money Machine, you can just turn those coins into cards since it gives you a mana. And like you said, Ring the Bell is another really good card with this because you're getting 3 triggers for 1 mana. And so I think like this will be a pretty decent include into food decks when we get like mass production and billionaire purchase, because those are already just playing a bunch of cards, and this is basically feed, pay 1 mana, draw a card.
Yeah. What do you think of this, Grief?
Basically, you guys listed 4 reasons why this card isn't good. At all, to be honest. I've already said that to Spike, and I already apologize in advance to it, or again, repeatedly. The best part about that card is A, that it has a leap, and B, that it is a bard slash robot. Everything else can be ignored, because the card was created when many talks regarding Honeypot were cursing around, because Honeypot is currently the only banned card in Legacy, in any kind of Legacy events, at least that I'm running, because it's utterly busted. This, it can wish to be Honeypot, but that's the highest ceiling it can get in terms of potential, because as you already pointed out, you have to have enough mana while comboing off on a turn that is not turn 2, so way later, have to have enough resources, which which also have to be cheap enough to actually get enough counter out of it. In most cases, you get 1 to 2 draws off of it in general. The rest of the time, what are you doing? You're playing cards to just draw a card. You're basically playing 1 mana for the cantrip effect to set you up for following turn that may or may not be coming, since you are talking about what? Ring the bell, paying the coins that you're playing off of Money Machine off. So basically your Money Machine cards just say, okay, 1 mana draw card, which is cute. But the only deck that really cares about these kinds of interactions is Action Spam. And not even Action Spam would want this card.
Yeah. I mean, I could imagine if we had more stuff that procced off of draws, that this could possibly reinvigorate and maybe Legacy something like a Rare Fate type scenario, but...
The thing is, you are talking about a constant tax on an effect that can, even if you have the capabilities of going potentially infinite, only trigger up to 13 times.
Yeah.
When Legacy, there's no question. I think in Standard, this might still see play.
Well, then, as I said, you probably only get like 2 to maybe a maximum of 3 draws. But then
the thing is, like, for decks like Food, that oftentimes you just have all these tokens in your hand and you don't have any food cards, so they're just sitting there. Like, this turns them into the card draw where you can actually draw into things that matter. So that might just be good enough.
Yeah.
It's not going to be great, but it might be good enough to run.
For me, this is a 4-cost / 5-cost fireball that draws a card, sorry.
Magneter, what do you think of this?
I think the card is fine, to be honest. Originally, I actually thought that it would be pretty strong. I'm not sure if I didn't see a version without pay, or I might be misremembering. But I think it would be fine in some decks. Again, I think Action Spam could actually use it. Although Action Spam couldn't really use it now because there isn't much Action Spam in the current rotation, I think. But overall, I think the card is fine. It's overall, for example, better than Grimeg, I think. So overall, I think the card is just alright.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to Talira Soldiers is a 2-drop neutral 2/2 human knight from Talira, with when an allied unit uses an active, this gains +1/+1. So this is a card from Daya, powering up the active matters theme of Talira, which we haven't talked about in a bit. Magneto, you want to talk about why you picked this?
Well, I picked this because I think the idea of active support is overall pretty interesting, even though right now it won't be too great, although you could, for example, use it with cards like Hellkite Tyrant, who can use its active multiple times. But overall, I think like this is a pretty interesting idea, and I'd really like to see it get more developed, because there weren't many cards which do that, I think. Overall, I think there could be a lot done with it. Overall, I think actives are kind of maybe not underappreciated, but aren't really used to their full extent, I think.
Yeah, well, the potential problems I'm seeing with this are there's a couple that are in Talira in particular, but there's some other ones that can actually make this pretty busted, because this is the Bane of Empty's Existence, which is a persistently scaling unit where it just is trying to scale procs off actives. But of course, this does require a bit more forethought than, say, something like Sam. I think this is very good. I think this is very versatile. I'm actually worried about having maybe a problem with this later down the line, but maybe I'm misinformed. Empty, what do you think of this?
This is actually close to fine. Close.
That's a good way to put it. Close to fine. I like that.
Like the thing is with this scaling is that it's only scaling itself. So
Yeah.
like if you're able to remove it later down the line, like the problem's gone. Versus stuff like Sam that you brought up, or if you can't remove it for a while, it just tears apart your entire board until you don't have anything. But yeah, this can get very big very quickly. We don't have too many active units right now, especially in one cost, which is really what you'd want to run this with. The only one I can think of, we have Greg, which isn't that great because you have to pay mana for it, so you can't use it on 2. And then there's like that O3 that got in that gives something +1/+1, and then Stabtician, which that's quite good. I think like in that sort of rage deck that runs Stabtician and the 1-cost O3 already, that this will just be an auto include because you can get it up to it's like a 3/4 or a 4/4 respectively turn 2, which is pretty good.
And don't we also have the Tyrant got in that could just spam its active, right?
Yes.
And then you have 2 units that can scale really, really strongly, potentially. I guess it remains to be seen. Grief, what do you think of this?
I think it's okay. It's a card you shouldn't really sleep on because it has pretty good potential since it's neutral and can fit with any kind of deck, especially in Mind and Red, which have more active units than usual and or compared to Spirit, that have which are more utility based. In Red, you can also find a similar card that is in the same week in terms of active gaining. 1-cost 0/3 wax unit that grants +1/+1 to an ally. And this would mean that turn 2, this is a 4/4, which is still completely fine. Let's not kid ourselves. Vampires run over it and kill you pretty much instantly in terms of, oh yeah, I'm durdling around for 2-3 turns. I'm not doing anything and interacting with the board, which is the problem with actives. They seem fine on paper with this card or dragon, but overall, you're still taking out 1 unit on your board out of any kind of combat equations. And if your active isn't halting any kind of units or interaction from your opponent, this will not matter anyway, because we're talking about a unit that just scales some HP and attack and has no innate protection.
Yeah. Okay. Let's hop into the meat of things with the active submissions. Starting with Upset Pufferfish, which is a 1-drop mine 0/1 fish from nowhere in particular with deadly. And when you play a card, this gains +1/+1 this turn. So this is a design from Entropic Age. You guys kind of know where I'm sitting with this guy. I love his style and his subjects that he chooses, but sometimes the designs are a little wacky, and this would probably be one of those. Basically here you get a potentially interesting 1-drop that hits the board, and if you're playing a card, you could get this to grow to the point where it's basically a glorified blocker. I do know that blue doesn't, or mine doesn't typically get regenerate, but I feel like that's kind of necessary to pull this out of the ditch it's in. But some people might disagree with me. It's not doing too well on the Reddit, and I think that might be why. But Grief, what do you think of this?
Have you forgotten that mana mites exist and they only scale attack based on the amount of actions that you're playing? This scales of any card you're playing, by the way.
Yeah.
And so that saying it's a glorified blocker, it's nowhere in the text stating that it cannot attack.
Yeah.
It's basically a better version of Talira Knights that we're talking about in terms of scaling, which says, okay, now I have to, take a seat back and exhaust the amount of units there was to scale at 1 unit. In this case, okay, good. I have a deadly 0/1 that for 1 card is a pretty good blocker and maybe gets a good trigger off of my 1 attack meta stuff. At 2 cards, okay, it's a 2/3 deadly unit that can pretty well attack and block. and from there it just goes off.
The thing that I have with this guy is he's just not very sticky. If you deal 1 damage to him, it doesn't matter if he was a 5/6. He only spends 1 turn as a 5/6, and then he dies.
At that point, you didn't even invest anything into that unit. You played cards while your opponent actually tried to remove scaling threat.
See your point. Okay, I see your point. Yeah. It's just end of turn HP buffs in this game are a little wacky, and I'm not sure. You're right. If you get this thing 2-stick, then you could get a lot of value out of it. I do think it's a little bit of a risk, though, and that's just my personal opinion. Empty, what do you think?
I think there actually is quite a big cost to playing this. And the cost is that you have to run a deck that is going to play enough cards in a turn to make this good. And there's not many decks in standard that can do that, like especially in mine. And even then, like this is so vulnerable at the start of the turn that I don't think it can really, like, it's really going to see that much play. Like the thing is, if your opponent's on initiative, let's say they're playing like specters, they just discard Hudspin and kill this, and you don't get any value out of it. Or if they have any duelists.
Did you just say specters post-rotation?
Hey, have you? Okay, Grief. I've been playing specters post-rotation, and they're really good. One of the best decks in the meta right now.
They are really good, but yeah, now let's come on. I mean, sure, you discuss
any duelist Grief, and this is dead in the water.
Then again, you just need 1 card to be played, and it's a 1/2, and
but
it's fine.
If your opponent has initiative and a duelist, you don't get to play a card. This just dies.
So you are saying that your opponent wasted a duelist on a 0/1 unit?
They didn't waste it. They used it for 1 turn.
Because it's
and
the
what
0/1.
deck are you playing with this, where you can play as a 1-mana 0/1 and still have enough pressure that you care about your opponent wasting a duelist for 1 turn?
This guy, okay. The thing is, though, this card, the funniest thing is it's considered a drawback, but this card has no, this card doesn't cost you much. You're playing it. If your opponent tries to remove it, oh cool, they wasted a removal on stuff that basically passively is part of your deck. If they're not removing it, it's a deadly threat on the board. If they're removing it, wow, they wasted a removal on a unit that you don't really care about, since you usually just go it passively while playing your deck plan. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I can honestly see both sides of this. I think it's more in the risky category, where like it can peter out really badly. But what you did say is right. Our removal base has changed a lot since rotation, and we don't have kind of all the tech against 1 HP units that we used to have, and so that changed. We still have Pancat. Okay. Magneter, what do you think of this?
I mean, yeah, I think this card could be pretty strong overall. I'd like the card to get in, just because I would want to see fish being revived.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this card could probably be pretty strong.
Yeah.
The deadly on it is probably isn't necessary for it to still be good, I think.
I totally disagree with you there. I think that's its only saving grace, and I think everyone else agrees with me.
I mean, all right. I mean, I don't know.
I don't know.
If you maybe right now, but if you played it with a legacy sort of fish deck, I feel like it wouldn't be too difficult to get the attack of this unit quite, I suppose. Yeah, no, deadly probably is rather necessary. I don't know. The deck just feels kind of weird with the scaling 80k in my opinion.
I agree with that assessment that it is a little bit weird. But it makes sense flavorfully. It's just maybe a little, but I think it needs it definitely. So the Novaen Headhunter is a 3-drop spirit 3/3 plant indicator from Entera with Agile, Life Bond, Entomb, draw a plant. And boy howdy is that I don't know what that word's doing there. Let's just pretend it's not there. I don't know why, like that adds nothing. It's a knight, or what have you. This thing I think is really, really interesting, and I wanted to know why it wasn't doing so well on the sub. It was at like 0 when I saw it, and then I bumped it up, and then someone else bumped it up around the same time and got it to 2. I feel like honestly maybe this is a little pushed, but it looks cute and it looks cool, and it would help keep plants around after or help us build plants into something new and cool, and help work with like a gain 3 potentially. So I don't know what people's problem with this card is. Empty, what do you think of this?
It's kind of just like blatantly overstated.
Do you think okay, it's too powerful? Okay.
And that I don't even know if it's like too powerful because plants are in a pretty bad spot, but like the stats are just wrong. There's too much on here for this mana cost. Like 3 mana, 3/3 Agile Life Bond is already about on curve, maybe a little weak. It might be like a 4/3. And then Entomb, draw a card, and a specific card, so it's a tutor, is a really strong effect. So that needs to cost more than 1 stat point.
Yeah. So would you think maybe pull away from the? I mean, obviously, so the idea is that it needs to deal at least 3 damage to gain at least 3 HP. So of the other 2 numbers, which do you think would be better to change? Maybe.
I think this could be a 3/1 and it would still see play.
Yeah, I could definitely see that, and that would actually let you get a little bit more value out of the Entomb because it's more likely to come off for you really soon. Yeah, so flavorfully, this one's a little weird. Like the flavor text is weird. The actual card, though, yeah, it seems a little pushed. Do you agree with that assessment, Magneter?
I don't think the flavor is too bad. Personally, I wouldn't really like the card. Although that's pretty much personal because I don't really like life bonds that much. But overall, I think this is an okay card.
Do you agree that it's pushed?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's pushed.
What do you think, Grief?
It's blatantly pushed, to be honest. This thing is definitely out of whack. A cantripping Agile, a life on the 4 as a 3-drop. I love my strong cards. I do. But this needs to at least lose 1 or 2 stat points.
So you would also agree with maybe doing it as a 3/1?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm totally agree with I totally agree with Empty Folder. Indicator, on the other hand, I don't care if that tribe exists or not. I don't really have a gripe like you do with tribes.
It's just weird. I don't know what it's doing there. It serves no purpose.
What the problem is, considering that you care about non-native and Black Rift. So,
I just believe that tribal words have to do something. That is in no way evocative.
Yeah, I actually agree with Stranger Side on this one. It would be nice if it was night because it gets more knights into the game. So eventually, if we want night synergy,
I can see
it'd be fine if the type there said pineapple man, because like as one word, plant pineapple man, because that would mean something to me at least. As it is, it's just gibberish. So why not knight or something?
Gibberish, I think it means researcher or adventurer, something like that, if I remember correctly.
Well, then why is his name Headhunter? Like, I don't know. It's whatever. I like the picture. It's interesting. It's just the flavor is just weird to me. And the flavor text even is a little bit weird to me. But yeah, I think it's a little pushed and probably needs to get scaled back a bit. So let's talk now about the magical man who spreads goodness wherever he goes, and wherever he makes a card, I'm just in awe of the wonderful new things he is creating. Sour Pickle is a 1-drop spirit 1/1 toon food plant from Karachar by Cornmeal. We got Cornmeal doing cartoons, guys. He did another one on the sub. This is the one I wanted to talk about. Feed plus 2 HP, deal 1 damage to fed unit. This is cool. I worry a little bit maybe about the tribe because it does. There's not a whole, or no, he's building the rage archetype into Oozes. So this could work really well with Oozes potentially as like a bit of synergy. It's a 1-drop you don't want to play on turn 1, which is kind of an issue for certain decks, but it's basically an action on a stick. So I think that kind of makes up for it. I think the design here is really crisp, and he kind of knew what he wanted to do with it and went forward for it. And it seems like he's also working on making more rage synergy tunes, which Karachar, not very strong in the mechanical synergies. It's hard to make something that really makes sense. So I think this is great to just throw a couple of utility cards into there with quite a bit of flavor and an interesting little design. Magneter, what do you think of this card?
I honestly think it's pretty alright. Again, if more rage oozes get in, this could potentially be quite strong. But at the moment, I think it's just alright. At its worst, it gives 1 HP on feed, which isn't too terrible, I wouldn't say. It isn't too great, but it isn't too terrible.
Yeah.
I suppose it also would synergize with things like regenerate, which
Yeah.
Spirit has a bit more of. But overall, I think it's alright. It's an alright card.
Yeah. The pun game is like Entera level good on the. What do you think of this, Empty?
I think it's pretty weak. Like, you need a lot of rage effects in your deck for this to actually have a feed that does something you want. This feed plus 1 HP on a 1/1 is really bad. And like 2 HP if you have like a bunch of regen units, that's decent, but it's still not a card you would run in that many decks because it's kind of hard for a lot of decks to like get multiple feed effects in one turn, which is what you would have to do to make it worth it. I mean, if you put a lot of work into making a bunch of spirit rage effects, it could be like pretty good. But right now, I don't see it.
I think this is a good bit of foreshadowing, though. Like and that's the thing that Cornmeal in particular, as a designer, does really well. Is he gives us something and says, "Here's a potential direction we can go. Do you want to do this?" And I think this card is very good at accomplishing that. Like, I'm like, okay, can we do this in Karachar? Does this make sense? Or do we want to build some other rage designs? Or like, what does this do? You know? And I think it does that really well, personally. Grief, what do you think of this?
To be honest, that card exists. End of conversation. I don't see much opportunities to utilize it currently, neither in Standard nor in Legacy. So what comes of it will remain to be seen. Overall, cute card.
Yeah.
And just thinking about it in my head though, like comparing this to Scarlet Statistician, this is just so much worse.
Okay. The twin Arcanists are Twin Arcanists are a 2-drop mind action from Seal of Elementary that creates Flint and Steel. Each of Flint and Steel are 1-drop mind 1/1 human Arcanists with Agile. So this is from the School of Archipelago project, or SOAP. One thing that I find interesting was this has a very, very similar artistic composition to the other card we talked about before, Devon of Archetypes or whatever. If you actually look at the two art side by side, you would think they were related, but they have nothing to do with each other as far as I know, except obviously the whole soap thing. So this is kind of an interesting thing. We've seen similar stuff before with like Bullfrog Trainer in Spirit. And this could potentially give Ashgerty a little bit of much needed, a little bit of a reach, a little bit of just bodies on the floor. I really don't know what to say too much about this card. What do you think of it, Grief?
Clean, simple, helps out Ash slash one attack matter stack and Arcanists. So yeah, props for that. Overall, I don't really see an issue with that card. Could maybe have fast to make it a little bit more interactive for your king plans in terms of, oh yeah, here are my two units. What was it? Dunewalker Assault, Dunewalker Frontier. Yeah. So it gives your assault 2 more damage, 4 more reach, and so on. So overall, very clean design.
Yeah, I agree with it. It's very clean. Fast would be interesting both from a mechanical and a flavorful standpoint, with the units then having agile and it portrays them as these very fast individuals. And it would, I think, differentiate it a little bit more from the other designs that are in a similar design space of drop dudes do aggro, in terms of what its role is. Magneto, what do you think of this?
I don't think I have much more to say. Pretty much like Griff said, it can be useful with Dunewalkers, I suppose. But there's not really much else to say about it. On its own, it's okay, I suppose. Right. I don't think there is too much to say about it.
Yeah. MD, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I mean, like Griff said, very clean design, perfectly fine, simple, common. Interested to see more of what School of Archetypes project has to offer. I like a lot of their designs.
Yeah, it is beautiful, by the way. Like just the art. Of course, Mystic always does that. Okay, now let's talk about the second blank stone mine in that's been. So now we have the Hoverstone Mine, which is a 1-drop mine, 0/3 place from Skiff, with flying, can attack, and when you play an action, give an ally flying, and this takes 1 damage. So as it on its own as a 1-drop 0/3 flying defender is actually not that bad. I actually think of that second ability as potentially more of a drawback just because it's hard to control, especially if you're like, well, maybe it's manageable. It's a little bit kind of a hard card for me to evaluate, and I think it was your pick, right, Grief? So let's just have you get us started on this one.
This could potentially see play in Arcanist decks moving forward, since they are trying to support actions and or creating them themselves. So at that point, they will get more reach in terms of aggressive playstyle, since Frenzy was partially set up for them with a Pyromancer. Whenever you're playing an Arcanist, you're getting a Fireball. So now you're having a Fireball for 3 damage on face, and can also make one of your dudes, give one of your dudes flying. If you don't have if you don't really have too much interaction for that, or you have a good push for the turn, this will remain in play as a flying blocker. Until then, sure, this is probably a good utility card.
What do you think of this, Empty?
Yeah, I think in the right deck, this could be quite strong. I mean, it has the potential to give flying to up to 3 of your units. Like, that's really good. Obviously, you have to play a deck around that's like good utilizing that. I don't think that's that difficult. Just like an aggressive deck that has some actions, and then like use the flying to get some damage through, I think would be good.
So yeah, I think it's good kind of on the merits of not having that other ability, and that other ability could give some much needed reach to like an Arcanist deck. Any sort of like board-based deck that does run quite a bit of actions in it. It is, yeah, you can use, it does force you to play actions at specific times when you need them or else lose this, but honestly, as a 1-drop, it's not that big of a loss. So I think this is a pretty well-designed card. What do you think, Magneter?
First of all, I really wish this could have been a Xandar Crystal. But besides that, overall, I think it's a pretty cool card, even though the kind of idea of it is a bit odd, to be odd, not bad, just odd that you are you have to play actions in order to buff your, in order to support a more aggressive play style with the units. But overall, I think it's a pretty cool card.
Yeah. Well, Skiff has no cards in, but was actually technically designed before Xandar. And it was just kind of a project Azraz wanted to do that wasn't really taking off. It wasn't really popular with a lot of the player base. But I think, honestly, if this is the kind of design that we're going to see from it in the future, maybe they could turn that around.
I mean, yeah, it's not like I care too much about it, just...
I know, I'm just saying, I'm just giving a little bit of the history in the background for the viewers. So Bursting Blight is a 1-drop neutral 1/1 ooze from Mortstall with agile and entomb draw a unit that costs 1 or less. So this is actually kind of interesting that we had the Novaen Headhunter thingy, Pineapple Man, earlier in the episode, because we can now talk about it kind of in the context of this. Because it's a very, very similar card, right? Minus the life bound, it's still a square unit, and its draw is draw a unit that costs 1 or less. This could be an interesting sort of not only a great filler unit for oozes, but it's also a Purlock replacement for a lot of decks that needed sort of a Purlock just filter effect. So I think this is a really cool design and maybe a little powerful. It's hard to say because it's so small, but just in terms of what it offers, because this is sort of a creep over Purlock almost. Empty, we'll let you go first.
I mean, so first of all, you just run this in Held Index because it's a 1-cost agile that can be run in strength. So
must run, yeah.
There you go, auto include there. And then for other decks, yeah, this is sort of a Purlock replacement. I do think it does Purlock's job a bit worse because it's not immediate. And a lot of times with Purlock, you want to like generate a whole bunch of blockers by drawing into themselves. Yeah. Or just like clean out your deck of all your 1-drops so you don't draw them later. But yeah, it's gonna fill the same role as Purlock in a lot of decks. Does a really good job of like stalling against any sort of mid-range deck since you can just block into their stuff over and over again. Yeah.
Yeah, and if we ever get any like good, or I don't know if we have any already, just 1-drop oozes with entombs, this could be a really nice way to just build up your Mortar Mockery for a big payoff type thing. Magneter, what do you think?
Yeah, I feel, again, this can be a sort of replacement for Paralog, which I think it's pretty cool, but it's also might be useful in oozes in at least the future. Like I said, there isn't really that many 1-cost oozes, at least at the moment. But once we have more of them, I think this could be pretty cool. Again, like you said, you could use Mortar Mockery Ooze with it. Alright, I think it's an alright card.
What do you think about it, Grief?
Pretty much overall a versatile unit for any kind of deck that you want to have a tutor effect and beat a specific body of a 1-cost 1/1. So Ash, KM, Heldem, whatever. So yeah, pretty good card as well in Legacy as in Standard. So I'm glad to see this.
I think Grief didn't has something to do later today because his 3 picks were things that we all had like a sentence apiece about, and I just managed to like drag it out. So I hope you enjoy your hot date later tonight. Grimeg, turn Malice, is a 4-drop spirit 2/5 ooze scientist from Mortstall, Realm of the Dead Things. Oh, I think I forgot to say it on the last one. Realm of the Dead Things, Realm of the Dead Things, Realm of the Dead Things. There, I'm caught up. Ambush and allied units have Entomb, create a random ooze in hand with less base cost than this. And destroy an ally, active destroy an ally, give your oozes +1/+1. This is just bonkers cool. Like, this is the kind of design that, like, my inner Simic player, I play a lot of like blue, green, and magic. Like, I love the combination of like the card value and the cares about death and the just the like the growing in really interesting and creative ways. And this is gorgeous both from an art standpoint and a design standpoint. This definitely reads like a Spikebird design, and I am just all here for it. I believe this should be the rare that gets in this week. It's just so cool. Empty, what do you this is your pick, so what do you think of it?
Yeah, this is like the big capstone card for your Ooze deck.
Yeah.
Like, this is that big tribal payoff that like it's going to bring everything together and make your deck like perform up to your expectations. It has like it just generates that constant value, like you said. It lets you kill your own allies in order to get all those Entombs that are like sitting around, and then it buffs your whole board so that you can go in for attacks. It just basically hits everything that Ooze decks want to do. I'm really glad Spikebird went with this design and posted it on the Reddit because the original was really overpowered. Yeah, I would be fine with this got in. It's really
Yeah,
cool.
I had a super busy week this week, and I haven't been on the Discord. It's been feeling really bad, but I am also very glad that this is what we ended up with. Grief, what do you think of this?
Really cool design, and it remains to be seen how it will possibly turn out, since the thing is, it creates oozes, and with upcoming oozes that will be designed in the future, it will pollute the potential pool of cards that you can hit. And I don't know, I haven't looked at the blogs, if it creates a random one or has a priority of the highest costed card below the base cost of that unit.
Yeah, you're right that you can whiff and just get a bunch of 1-drops that won't generate anything, I think.
And the quality of the cost or base cost that you want to get below is also pretty much an indicator on how your deck will shape up. Similar to Hiko, which try to be at least at the 2 cost range for your units. Maybe a similar thing will happen for Grimeg, since maybe the best quality of oozes that you can get are at cost 201, or maybe there's the specific 5 cost or 4 cost ooze that you want to hit, which at the end of the day is the similar range where you can hit Grimeg as well, so you can get multiple of him.
Yeah. Well, the other thing you got to remember is, especially, it has that other ability that says, even if I got a garbage ooze, right, unless it's like actively harmful to me, great, into the recycler, right? It gives you an out for that too, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, but just for higher costed oozes.
Yeah. Magneto, what do you think of this design?
I think this will be a pretty cool card. Although there are some oozes which cost are there too. I mean, no, I think this will be a cool card. I think it might be a bit strong, to be honest, and also I wonder how it will work with something like Grave Rave, as in, will this actually trigger its passive Entomb?
I think it will.
If Grimeg will actually also give you a random Ooze. But overall, I think it's a pretty cool card. You could use it with something like Crawling Contagion, maybe, to get quite a lot of quite a big buff.
Yeah.
But overall, I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So this could be really cool. I'm excited. I really hope it gets in. How is it sitting? Sitting at like 11, so it's doing pretty well, and it could be doing a little bit better. Okay. Let's get ready to Ashblast, which is a 2-drop strength action from nowhere in particular. Don't know why it's not from Seal or something. Deal 2 damage to a unit. If it dies, create 2 flames. So this is baby short circuit. Flames, for those of you who don't remember, are 1-drop 1/1s with when this leaves play, banish this. Cute, interesting. I do like that we're going back to like the whole do something and if it dies design for removal. Those create really flexible designs and diversify removal pool, right? Because with removal, it's cool if it actually does something in addition that furthers your game plan. And this can potentially get you some nice little token units to maybe swarm the board with. Magneto, what do you think of this design?
I think this is a pretty cool card, although it could possibly deal 3 damage, I think.
Then it would be a creep on Fireball.
I mean, I suppose, but I mean, yeah. The 2 damage feels kind of weird.
Yeah.
But overall, I would want the card to get in. Even just because I would want to see more of the flame archetype.
Yeah, that does bring an interesting.
I suppose you could also use it possibly use it with some sort of rage deck and use the 2 damage on your own unit, although that would probably be a bit excessive.
Yeah.
But overall, I think it's a pretty cool card.
We don't have a lot of like direct unit damage in strength, although I think maybe there's a push for that forward.
Yeah, there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Because it's not supposed to be something they can do. They don't.
Yeah.
They aren't supposed to get targeted unit damage, and they haven't had any.
And that's
It's
it took
all
me a
random.
second to pick up on that, but yeah, this kind of breaks what we have so far for affinity identities. Well, yeah.
Oh, well, if you're going off hero cards, pretty much every hero has something that breaks affinity identity.
Yeah, because the affinity identity chart is bullshit.
I believe weaknesses have a place in affinities. I don't like this for that reason. It took me a second to pick up on it because I haven't really been that active recently, but and this is actually
know that in post-rotation, red has basically no ways of interacting with low-cost units or early interaction with the board as well.
I printed a duelist unit, so I know there's at least one.
Yeah, you're saying duelist, but that's basically not what I'm hinting at.
That's all you need. What else do you need?
No, that's actually what they don't need, you fool. The thing is, every other affinity/hero has an option to deal with the board without sacrificing their own board, which duelists are.
So let's just make more duelists that have Slayer effects and scale and do all sorts of other fun stuff.
So wait a second, you're still saying that we have to have early interaction dudes that are scaled out of whack since duelist is scaled higher compared to other keywords, as well as, oh yeah, if my duelist gets killed, I still don't have an interaction with the board, but what my opponent still has, without sacrificing their board.
Okay, so I'm guessing, Greaves, that you're in favor of this card.
Of course I am.
I mean, that's what cards like Stock Pack Pouncer used to be good at for strength. But now that's done.
Yeah.
Okay, so the thing that like really annoys me about this card is that I've been saying on the Discord over and over again, move flames to mine. They make more sense there. And now, instead of moving flames to mine, they're just taking mine cards and making them strength so that they can keep flames and strength.
Pretty much. I agree with that assessment.
If you can't move flames to mine, move mine to the flames.
So yeah, okay. I think we got it's kind of a split panel over this with Grief on one side and me and Empty on the other, and I don't know what Magneter's stance on all this is.
And again, I think it would be alright. The 2 damage feels kind of low, but overall I think it would be cool.
Be busted otherwise.
It's not busted otherwise.
I mean, honestly, I'd even rather just see it at an increased cost but increased damage, because the 2 damage with the if it dies is kind of
okay,
odd.
that's more respectable. I still disagree with you on affinity identities, but I would go with increased cost, increased damage. That's more an opinion I'm willing to talk about. But yeah,
making Seal of Elementary though. That's one thing.
Yeah, it should be from Seal. Yeah, but making this just better Fireball in strength is like, well, what's mine for anyway?
Face, which is a very important aspect, my dude.
Yeah, good point. Fair point. But I'm with Empty. Just we have affinity identities for a reason. Silver Honor Knight. Oh, another Entropic Mage design.
Get rid of them.
Entropic Mage has 2 modes for his art. One is Soldier Boy, and the other is Thing from Nature. And this is the Soldier Boy design. Silver Honor Knight is a 4-drop neutral 4/4 human knight from nowhere in particular. With Summon, you may pay 2 mana to gain +2/+2 and untargetable. Oh, this is interesting. So it's Kicker. We have a Kicker design, guys, that it's either a 4-drop 4/4 or a 6-drop 6/6 with Untar. I like that. The flavor text is a little uninspired. I'm gonna start writing all my flavor texts like that. Sam the Ram, it's a dude in a costume. Flips Burgers, it's a place where you eat fast food. That's the way to go. No, for all the things, I actually do like this design and I like this art. Entropic Mage, I'm sorry. Let's talk about it. Who picked this one?
That was me.
Empty, go.
Yeah, so I really like this idea. Kicker is a mechanic for Magic that I love, so seeing it in collective would be awesome. This needs to cost 3 mana though. At 4 mana, this is like completely unplayable. And at 3, like it's at least on par with vanilla stat line, so it could see some play.
Yeah, and this is a great way to do like a soft vanilla, French vanilla type thing, is just have it be a block of stats that's a different block of stats. So it fills in roles and it fills in roles at different spots in the game. So this is a really interesting, this is a clean design. Very, very clean coming from Entropic Mage, who tends to be a little disjointed sometimes. I feel these designs we've been talking about his are really, really good designs. And of course, these aesthetics are always pretty good. Grief, what do you think of this? Do you agree with Empty?
Yeah, I agree with Empty. Either it's understated or it costs too much for what it does.
Yeah. So you think a 3-drop 4/4 neutral would be good for the game?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. What do you think, Magneter?
Yeah, I could say the same thing, because at the moment it's pretty much a 6 mana 6/6 with untargetable, which I don't think is that great. One thing you could possibly do with it is maybe repeat its summon. Not sure if it would be worth it. It's still definitely a bit weak, but it's just something you could possibly do that would be interesting with it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that is the other thing, is in summon decks you can actually do it after the fact.
Yeah, especially with something like the unit that has active repeat a unit's summon effect.
Yeah, actor mini, that could work. So yeah, nice clean design. I like it. Dwarven Teacher is a 3-drop strength exclusive 2/2 dwarf from Vanarad. Oh, from Mage Master 4586. With Ward and Rage, you gain 2 XP and lose 1 max mana. Okay, this is interesting. A Rage effect to lose mana, probably maybe only going to get off once. This
no,
is hard to
I probably
evaluate.
should say, because the wording on it is incorrect. I'm pretty sure the person who made the card in the comments on the post said that the lose 1 max mana is a passive effect.
Oh,
Oh, there is a period there.
well,
Yeah,
yeah. Okay, yeah.
Kind of unclear. It should probably just be -1 max
It
mana,
should
I
be
think.
-1 max mana
Yeah.
to be in line with the wording on Mana Maiden and other stuff, because lose is considered an action word and normally only takes place during an action effect, like a rage or something like that. As worded, it seems to be the -1 max mana off of Mana Maiden, where if you get rid of this, then you get your mana back.
Yeah,
So as is, this is really, really hard to evaluate. It seems like this was your first pick, Magneter. So why did you pick it? What do you have to say about it?
so first of all, I do want to see dwarves again post-rotation, because I think the whole archetypal idea is pretty interesting, but most of them were rotated. So that's one thing. And the second thing, I think that XP gain in strength could also be pretty interesting, especially for example, Pearlmaw, whose XP gain I feel is usually pretty slow. The only thing, I mean, the first thing is definitely the wording should be different. And I don't think this would need to be exclusive. I feel like the only reason for this to be exclusive is that maybe people tend to not like an XP gain in KM, and this could technically be used in KM, but I still don't think it would need the exclusive. And you could probably even use this in a non-dwarf deck, not just in a regular rage deck.
I don't agree with any of that personally. I don't know. I think this is kind of a weird design. I'm not a big fan of dwarves, so that's probably motivating a lot of my opinions on it. The grammar fix, obviously, I do agree with you on that, but like, especially just, well, bear in mind you're probably not gonna get this rage effect off more than once. Probably, maybe, I don't know.
I'd argue, to be honest.
If you're really,
I mean, if it's word, especially, that's important. I mean, important. Does the fact that it says word means that you can possibly get the effect, I would say, at least 2 times.
Well, I mean, if you're warded, you're not going to deal damage with whatever that thing was, but yeah, this is still really hard to evaluate. Grief, what do you think of this design?
MT, do you want to talk about that card? Because I'm still trying to figure out whether this card is okay at best or trash.
I'm leaning on complete trash. So I actually agree with Magneter that I really like dwarves. However, we've tried to do them twice, and both times we've failed.
Yeah.
And they've become like this really broken high roll sort of deck. So if we do that, if we do dwarves again, maybe we could avoid that this time. As for this card though, it's going to be really hard to get the full value out of this. Rage gain 2 XP is actually quite strong, but it is only a 2/2. So if your opponent's not like running tokens for you to run this into, it's kind of hard to put in all that extra effort to get the rage off multiple times. And then like the fact that you're losing 1 max mana while this is on the field, is like a really big downside for a payoff that's not that great. Also, this should be a common.
Yeah, the text crunch thing. Okay. Grief, what do you think of this?
Sorry to Mage Master for calling that card trash, but it probably is. We're looking at a 3-cost exclusive 2/2 with ward, a rage effect that's pretty good. Well, thanks to, funny enough, the ward, the rage effect, basically means you're just getting it once. As MT pointed out, you will run it into, or you hope to run it into tokens, meaning you're probably not trying to attack with this dude, unless your opponent is basically just running one attack axis. At that point, yeah, sure, run this dude into stuff. But yet, thanks to the ward, most burn effects or ping effects do not affect this dude. So it has protection from a potential source of XP that you're putting onto play, while also having a constant tax on your mana pool without any benefits besides shallow.
Yeah.
I mean, this could probably cost 2 mana, but I really don't see how the word makes it so the rage can only be triggered.
Because ward cancels out any kind of effects that affect this unit. So even damage.
Enemy effect.
Enemy effects, yeah, but let's be honest, rage self-trigger effects are existent but bad.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say they are bad. I
mean,
mean, we have, for example,
Statistician
Statistician,
really
who is
good.
pretty good.
Yes.
We have the Wax Heart, which is also a pretty decent card. Wouldn't probably be too useful on this specifically, but it's overall.
But you're
it's
still
also
trying to invest into a unit that taxes your mana, costs 3, is exclusive, and sure, the thing is, ward protects you from interaction from your opponent, so you can get your game plan in, but still that means you're quite dawdling around with a debuff on your ass.
Again, I really think you would get the rage effect at least 2 times, because I mean it depends. I'm not sure how good it. I suppose if you were playing a dwarf deck, not too much, but in a rage deck you would definitely get this at least 2 times.
I mean, with Statistician, it is pretty easy to get the proc multiple times. However, like, you have to keep the Statistician on board, and this is still not providing very much stats, and is also sapping your mana while it's sitting there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this could probably just cost 2, to be honest.
I
That
don't
would be
like dwarves, so
interesting.
I just have to stay out of this discussion.
The thing is, Stranger Side, this is not a good dwarf. That's the
Okay, then
is-
let's get those in because I want dwarves.
It doesn't work with the dwarf payoff.
It is funny enough a rage card in a deck that has better cards for the same cost.
No. Okay, I'm gonna move on. Historic Organizer. I think we talked about this last week, didn't we?
Yes, good card. Next.
Yeah, so
Really?
why didn't this get in? Come on, guys. Okay, I'm done doing my thing. Magneto, did you have any commentary you wanted to add?
Well, I mean, I really didn't remember that this was talked about. And mostly, Puapka mostly, I think, said that they wanted this to be against action spam. But honestly, this would definitely be much better against equipment decks, which I've heard some people complaining about post-rotation.
I think honestly it's better to work with this than against this, and that's kind of one of the things we said, in that you can, like your wax buffs, you can get the target effect off the wax buff or off a wax unit and then put it on a different unit. So I think this is just added versatility for like a mid-rangey type thing, for the most part. This can help you a lot. And for that reason, you got to be careful about saying, oh, maybe this is good as a counter card for any particular deck.
Yeah, we haven't seen the full power of the equipment deck yet, because they're getting Rusted Fate Cutter next month.
Yeah. So hopefully people get this in soon, especially if they're gonna change their mind after Rusted Fate Cutter. I want this in before they change their mind. So vote on this card, please. Vote yes. Anyone else have anything else to say?
No, I like the card.
Okay. Now, Let's go back there again, folks. I think I'm ready. Flipswap is a 3-drop mind action from Hallucinagetica with banish all units in play, then create copies of them. Each player chooses up to 2 friendly units to ready. I think this needs the words for their owner in it, because the way this is actually worded is bad. That's the one thing I can say about that without letting my horrible biases come into play. And since that's just me being an awful person, I'll let Magneter talk about why he picked this card.
Well, so first of all, you could possibly use this with entrance-based cards, which I think could be interesting. And also another thing is that Opera also said in the post title that this could be useful against heavily buffed units. So again, pretty much against equipment decks at the moment.
Yeah.
So I feel like this would be useful for that. You could possibly use this in an aggro sort of thing to actually ready if you played 2, maybe not an aggro thing. More so, if you played 2 bigger units, you could use this to ready them instantly.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a pretty interesting card.
Yeah, it's an interesting potentially for go tall decks or entrance decks. Mechanically, I think it's great. This is my kind of card for the most part. I think given the particular synergies this have with certain other cards that I'm not going to talk about, I do think like this could have gone maybe to a different realm.
No.
But anyways, so talking about the card itself, this is really interesting because without saying the words on it, this is actually a hero reward hoser. Because if you do the 3 effect, the only thing that will not come back to the board are immortal units. And so this actually serves additional purposes as a hero reward hoser and potentially a mutant hoser. Of course, other effects that are like certain equipment-based type builds will go away from this. And so that's kind of why it doesn't work with certain Go Tall designs. But this is obviously very welcome in any sort of like Aesthetica build, any sort of design that like cares about maybe copies or whatever. And so I really like mechanically what this card is. What do you think of this design, Grief?
Perfect for what it does. Both for Legacy and in Standard looking forward. This has very interesting deck building implications for neons or even merge mechanics, since your merge targets are banished, so your mergers return to play. Then again, you create new targets, and you can even ready certain allies for that are either merged into Kitsune and so that Kitsune are merged into, and so on and so forth. So this will be interesting for these kinds of decks. And for neons, they have both leave the field and enter the field triggers. So this also provides kind of cute interactions. For any kind of card that will care about the zone changes, probably reading, as we already pointed out, either go tall or big dudes can actually attack now. Can also allow you to, funny enough, re-trigger active abilities.
Yeah. If you have an active that's good enough that merits it, or like, yeah. What do you think of this, Empty?
I think this is a great card. Like there's just so many interactions that you have to think about. Like promotes a lot of really cool deck building. Like you can build this weird go tall like deck where you run like maybe some big overrun units and then exhaust everything except for 2 of your opponent's units, so you can get your damage through. Neons, some like weird merge deck, or you could just run it as a tech card against equipment if that becomes super popular.
Yeah.
Really cool card, a lot of interesting applications.
Very versatile and doesn't really create like a turbo fog problem because it does give the 2 units ready. So I think it's pretty solid. Appropriately costed, and it it feels like an Apra card in that it has just this level of just like very, very well thought out, like what you want to use it for and the right versatility against the right kind of decks, which is kind of what I think of Apra's hallmarks are. And so for that, it's really good. And I do think we have reached the end of the list. So I'm going to stop the
By the way, folks, the giveaway has ended. Last week I announced, oh yeah, if people will mention how many from how many beverage vessels that I drank of, they will be gifted pendant pass and access to the legacy server. Funny enough, and that just goes to show how people watch this show, how people watch Submitted for Approval. No one contacted me.
Come on, guys.
No one.
Whatever. Anyways, sad. Shame for shame. Thank you guys very much, as always, for watching. Thank you, Grief. It was nice having you on, as always.
That was nice being here.
Thank you to Empty Folder.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And thank you to Magneter. It was interesting and nice having you on.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me to the show.
You ruined Spirit by giving it flying, but I still like you. No.
You did well. You did
Okay.
well.
I ruined Spirit by making a terrible card. That's what I did.
So
the card
anyways,
is all around terrible.
Keep like, comment, and subscribe. Remind me why I'm doing this. Keep playing collective and keep voting on cards. Bye.